this in the affirmative position. Radical Coder doesn't exactly scream masculinity.
I think I do.
And his partner is possibly one of the only 3 biological women even willing to do debates at all. I find this topic particularly annoying, as you might as well ask if the sky is blue. But let's get into it. Public schools being geared towards girls, the plummet in sperm count, the plummet in testosterone, the fact men can't even tell women they can't be men, the fact that all male activities that mostly males being geared towards are totally vilified across the board, the fact that TV shows men as bumbling idiots and women as being sensible and logical, which I find humorous. You can tell a bunch of unmarried cat ladies are doing the script writing in Hollywood because women are basically functionally stupid. They deserve their honored place in our society and deserve to be treated with respect, but nobody's ever going to accuse the average woman of being far too logical or too emotionally in control of herself. Masculinity is as much a biological phenomenon as it is an environmental one. There can be some things, I suppose, that are considered girly in some cultures that are considered masculine in others, but by and large, these activities are outliers. Men worldwide essentially all function the same when it comes to masculine interests. Manly isn't really something that's up for much of a debate. You can say things like strength, stoicism, competition, capability. We have exact definitions if you need them. A French man or an Asian man probably aren't going to quibble much about what makes a man manly. I think Radical Coder over here will just quibble about definitions for an hour and a half and waste everybody's time instead of actually arguing the point, but maybe he'll surprise me. In my case, I'm ready to defend the definition of masculinity, but just so you know, Radical, nobody's confused about what it is. How they want to make this case, I'm actually eager to hear, as the alarm bells on this have been going off for quite some time. I suspect we'll hear a bunch of feminist bullshit about how it's actually masculine to act like a little bitch, or that what masculinity is changing, or blah, blah, blah. But I doubt there'll be any serious arguments that traditional masculinity isn't vilified and that it's declining as an acceptable form of societal behavior.
We'll kick it over to Rachel as well, who's also on the yes side. Glad to have you back, Rachel. The floor is all yours.
Thank you, Jane, for having me back. I love coming here. It's always a good time. So I'm going to kind of just build off of what Andrew said. He mentioned that masculinity, we kind of know what it is, but we do have some APA definitions for you if you'd like. It's usually defined by something like assertiveness, dominance, competitiveness, stoicism, things like that. And you guys may or may not know that I wrote a book about feminism and how it has radically inverted the social order in a very short amount of time. We're talking about 1 century compared to the many thousands of years of human history that came before it, where we went from having a pre-industrial society where physical strength and power was very highly prized and very important and necessary, to post-industrially having feminism and women's liberation kind of invert everything and kind of make us what I would consider more of a matriarchal society at this point. And the evidence I have for that would be things like what Andrew alluded to with schools. Boys do much worse in school than girls do now. They get worse prison sentences. They get worse punishments for just about anything when you're looking at the exact same crimes committed. Women get far more lenient punishments in courts and in school. And I think that's because once we put women in charge of everything over the last 50 years, we've got elementary schools are 80% female teachers. High schools are over 60% female teachers. Good 40% of kids are being raised by single moms now. So most kids go straight from single mom to daycare lady to lady elementary school teacher, so on and so forth. And in all those formative years, boys are punished for almost anything considered traditionally masculine. And they are rewarded for more traditionally feminine behavior, which is why it's like there's a bias against them now in the system to some degree. You can look at things like family courts as well for that. Men are much more likely to be victims of violent crime. They do commit more of the violent crime, but they're also disproportionately much more often the victim of violent crime than women. So, I mean, we look at things like decreasing testosterone, lowering sperm counts, physical strength, things that they've measured like grip strength, sprinting speed, rowing speed. All the world records are far lower than they used to be. So like classical Romans could row much faster than modern humans can. The grip strength just from like the World War II generation to now is like half of what it was or something. So just physical strength in general has declined as well among men. Women are now dominant in a lot of career fields. They're dominant in college education. It's just a very much more gynocentric culture that we live in than what it used to be. So I think you can look at all the biological aspects and see that masculinity has declined, and you can also look at the social impacts and see that masculinity has declined. So I don't know if they're going to argue that that's not the case, and maybe they've got some evidence for that, or if this is going to turn into more of a debate about why masculinity is on the decline and whether that's good. But I guess we'll just take it from there and see how it goes.
You got it. Thank you very much for that opening, Rachel. And want to let you know, folks, we have many juicy debates coming up. In fact, this month it's going to be huge. Alex Stein and Hunter Avallone collide over the famous or infamous, depending on how you see it, AOC event that happened several months ago. You don't want to miss it. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss it. It's going to be a big one. And with that, thanks so much, Radical Coder and Lav, for being with us. They're taking the no position, of course, folks, namely saying that men are not any less masculine. And Radical Coder is going to get us started. Thanks very much, Ryan. The floor is all yours.
All right. So I'm not necessarily saying that men aren't less masculine. I think we will quibble over some definitions for sure. My take is really that if men are less masculine in particular dimensions of masculinity, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. People will get triggered by phrases like toxic masculinity. It's probably a little bit of irony that we can explore. But obviously there are masculine traits and expectations that do produce toxic environments for men and the people around them, and it's good to reduce those. Patriarchy hurts all of us in different ways and based on our relationship to it. And if you're a woman, that relationship is different than if you're a man. If you're non-binary, that relationship is also different. In terms of positive masculine traits, none of those seem to be exclusive to men, nor do typically feminine coded traits are exclusive to women. And we're probably better off in general having more well-rounded human beings that embody positive traits, whether they've been coded feminine or masculine historically. I don't really care. I want good people all around. On top of that, masculinity has had a long time to be carved out in this very specific way, while explicitly excluding women from positions that were perceived as masculine. I remember hearing, actually I've heard this like several times in the past week in different conversations, where people will say things like, you agree that men are naturally better leaders, right? Which is just a bizarre thing to say, considering like for most of history, like women weren't allowed to be leaders in most societies. So I don't know how you can just assert that had they been allowed, they would be worse ones. I mean, obviously not being allowed in those positions is going to have some impact over a long period of time, similar to how Andrew talks about women not being in debate spheres and stuff. Well, shocking, women get treated like shit in debate spheres. It's anyone who watches any of these debate panels and debate conversations should understand this, or I see it certainly. It's probably not very fun to be a woman in a lot of these spaces, and it's probably pretty alienating. And I don't think that's even necessarily unintentional in a lot of ways. So on top of that, I'm sorry, hang on. And so femininity was kind of shaped by the roles that women were expected to fill, contrasted to the ones that men had dominated and, again, legally excluded women from. And this doesn't just hurt women, that didn't just prevent women from developing those dimensions, but also prevented men from feminine, or from embracing traditionally feminine roles and traits. And I think that's also bad. So I think that my opponents are frankly in the unfortunate position where, at the end of the day, even if this isn't really the topic of explicitly the topic of this conversation, what their goal is that quote unquote biological men and quote unquote biological women, they should fill these traditional masculine and traditional feminine roles. And this is the way that we should push to organize our society, in spite of people who very obviously don't want to conform to these roles and rather thrive in environments where they're not forced into these boxes that they simply don't fit into. And yeah, so that's all I
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We'll kick it over to Lav.
So I'm a slacker. I didn't prepare anything, but I do. I agree with most of what obviously Ryan said. Yeah, I didn't know that the debate was if masculinity is on the decline, because I think that all of us can acknowledge to some degree that at least like paleo masculinity, right, like caveman masculinity certainly is. But I don't think that that's a bad thing. I actually think that's a really good thing, especially entering the new like technological age. It's just progressivism, I guess, because, you know, the traditionally feminine roles are what's going to humanize us on this very, you know, strange trip down the rabbit hole when it comes to obviously the world technologically progressing. So yeah, I'm sure that we'll argue about like definitions of masculinity and femininity and that sort of thing. And I'm ready to get into it. But yeah, I agree with everything that Ryan said.
Excellent. We'll jump right into the open conversation. As mentioned, folks, you can ask a question by either A, tagging me with @ModernDayDebate in the live chat, as well as super chatting a question, in which case we read the super chat questions first and then get to the standard questions. Thank you very much, folks. The floor is all yours. Glad to have all of you here.
Yeah, so this is the second time me and my wife have been on Modern Day Debate and won the debate right at the outset of the debate. Both of our opponents both agree with us. They concede that traditional masculinity is on the decline. As per the debate topic, we win. They conceded.
So should we go? I have better things. I have better things to do.
You lost.
So can I say? I think. I mean, fair enough. If we want to leave it at that, but I think that there's just so many more interesting conversations to be had here. Like when we talk about these different aspects of masculinity that Rachel laid out, like strength, assertiveness, dominance, and competition. I don't think any of these are explicit to men. Any of these, and also none of these are like inherently good all the time, and a lot of them manifest in like really bad ways. Like you can be hyper assertive in a way.
I see. So instead of debating whether or not masculinity is on the decline, now we'll pivot and we'll just debate whether or not it being on the decline is good or bad.
Are you scared? Are you scared to debate that? Conversation, yeah. Are you scared to have that conversation?
As long as you guys concede the debate.
I concede that from your perspective, masculinity is on the decline. Absolutely.
Okay, so if we can...
And masculinity as you know it. Masculinity as you know it.
Yeah,
right,
sure.
So since both of you have already conceded the entire debate and we already won, whatever you guys would like to launch into, I'm happy to do.
Yeah, so like what... I guess like how should we push to remasculinize?
Well, I mean, let's just start with
okay. How would you, Andrew and Rachel, how would you describe masculinity?
Well, we already did.
Well, okay, but you didn't give like a list. Like, can we get like a?
I literally gave a list, but I'll
give
it
like the
again.
assertiveness, dominance, and competition one.
Yeah, that's like 3 or 4 things.
That's what the APA considers it to be. But if you guys want to, I mean, I still feel like this is a bit of an unfair fight for you guys because this is literally like what I do with my life all the time. So if you want to launch into the changes we've seen in society and prove to me that they're good, go for it, because nobody has done that yet.
Well, there's another thing I'd like to bring up real quick. I was taking notes before our epic victory, and one of the things that Coper said was, well, women weren't allowed to be leaders. I want to tell you, Coper, if you have to be allowed to be a leader, you're not a leader. You see how that works? People have
that's
to
the problem with patriarchy.
Yeah.
People have to allow you
That's
to be
problem.
a leader. You're not a leader. That's how that works.
That's the problem. So you believe that like inherently men should just like lead because what they're bigger?
Well, do you have to be allowed to lead?
Okay, but you think
do you have to be allowed by a man to lead? Is that what you're saying?
Right now, yeah.
Why?
Okay, so hang on, Andrew.
Because because our
do you think
everything
that
is
black people
built.
can't be leaders?
Of course I can.
Well, how come they had to be allowed to be in leadership positions? They weren't allowed to be in those positions before. So
Well,
US,
so
I mean,
so
this is
are
kind of the same argument, right?
were black men always allowed to be leaders in like Africa?
In their own communities.
Yeah.
I'm sure that.
Well,
there were
wait,
Yeah,
black
I'm
men
sure
in
that they were too.
But that's not the argument,
Well,
right?
sure, but
Well,
females
yeah,
have
it is the
definitely been
argument.
leaders.
Hold on.
Females have been leaders throughout history, though.
Yeah.
Like Cleopatra. Like, there's plenty of females that are gynocentric governments or communities where they've been allowed.
No.
But in Western civilization, not necessarily.
Well, so why is it that men need to allow women to be leaders?
Because we've been under male regime
Because
for
you
as long
can't-
as we have.
Because you can't do anything about it?
Well, if you like legally codify something,
Is it?
kind of
Well,
hard. You
I
can't-
want to know.
Like, Andrew,
Is
I
it-
want you to know that if you were born into a situation where you were legally not allowed to do the things that you've
Mhm.
done to like thrive in your life, you probably wouldn't have done those things. Like you might think otherwise. You might think that no, it was so deeply inherent to me that I would have done these things no matter what obstacles were in my way.
Can't help it.
Hey, you're welcome to imagine that world, but I don't know. I think it's just kind of silly.
Yeah, calm down. man.
Before
I know
we
you
go,
took-
before we go into that, just because it's a little bit closer to the topic, I did like that you guys talked about. Is it a bad thing that men are less assertive, less competitive, less dominant? That's something I feel like we should really explore that before we go into whether or not you could say the systematic oppression of women occurred in the
Well,
past.
I mean, I really would like to get an answer to this. Women
This is so
outnumber.
Okay,
Are
well,
you,
no,
are you talking about
here's-
women
what are you talking
Let me
outnumber
make
about?
it
men.
What are you
simple. I'll
talking
make
about
it
in
really
terms of
simple,
wanting an answer?
Andrew, I'll make it very simple.
Okay, make it.
The inherent difference between the sexes is that one can kill the other with their bare hands, right? So it would make sense that
that you have to beg to lead.
not beg to lead,
Beg,
but
you
that,
have to beg.
no, but that after like a
Right.
regime of a male dominated society, that women now would start to want to equalize.
But what you're saying is the men, you have to ask the men to make the men step aside so that you can be in charge. Do you understand
well,
what
we
he's
don't
saying?
necessarily have to ask them. I don't think that
Okay,
anyone.
what would we do if we don't ask them and they don't agree with us and give us the permission to lead everything
Well-
and run everything? Like, what are we going to do about it?
Well, in democracy, that's sort of like how you get anything to change. So like that's like everyone sort of like asks permission in a way, I guess. Like
Well,
that's how
no.
you get things
No.
to move
Everything
on.
It started with
everything
critique.
is
It started with
bad.
early feminist
Yeah,
writers,
wait,
right?
this is like a very like I'm
This is
confused
absurd.
on this
Listen,
point.
I'll explain it to you.
Oh, thank
Everything that is political is backed by force. Everything that is law is backed by force.
you.
Everything.
Sure. Are you giving?
Okay.
Are
So
you
what-
saying
so
that
let-
are you advocating for
let
women
me-
to take to
Let
the
me
streets
finish.
and burn?
Stopping shrill immediately. Just give me 10 seconds
Oh,
to make the
God.
point, and then I'll let you respond.
Rachel, you brave woman.
Okay, so where I was at before I was so rudely interrupted was I was expressing that everything that's political is backed by force and everything that is lawful is backed by force, meaning by men. So what she's asking you specifically is if men don't want to give you any authority, what the hell can you do about it? And the answer is,
Burn down some buildings, kill
Yeah,
some men, I
nothing.
guess.
yeah, nothing. You can't do anything about it, right?
Well, it seems like something was done about it because for a long time, women weren't allowed to like vote. Women weren't allowed to.
That was
eat
nice
out
of
or
you.
Hold on.
be
All
involved.
right.
I'm
I-
glad
Yeah,
you brought
I'm
that
sure
up.
you are. I'm
So
sure.
now
yeah,
maybe
I know you
I
can.
can-
I know you
Maybe I
you
can
vote.
give you guys a little bitty short history lesson on how that happened.
No, hold on a second. Just before we go completely off topic, is that I do want to hear, is it bad that masculinity is declining? Because this is
Yeah.
totally off topic. So is it good or is it
Unequivocally,
bad?
I think-
Where would
I
you
think
guys
it's good
stand
that
on it?
masculinity is being redefined and
Yeah.
reimagined, and
It's
I think
bad
it's
and I can
really
prove it.
generally good to
You
critique
can
and
prove
make
it.
sure that you're.
Hold on,
Yes.
okay, just not everybody at the
Wait,
same
really
freaking
quick,
time.
before
All
we
right,
get
no,
back
hold
on
on a second.
topic,
Not
and-
everybody at the exact same time so we can actually hear you.
Okay.
Just
Go
that
ahead.
side.
I was just going to say that I think it's generally good to look at society and say what are the rigid structures and what are good things about them and what are bad things about them and how can we improve them. And I think for a long time, one of those structures was that women were property and women were not allowed to participate in society in a lot of different ways. And if you ask those women, some of them might have been fine with it, but a lot of them were like, no, this kind of sucks ass. Actually, this is like really lame.
That's not
And-
correct.
Okay,
So if I
maybe
could
not.
talk, you all
maybe-
have talked. You all have talked a whole bunch. I haven't talked.
Okay. Go.
That's not true. In my book, I talk about the fact that at the time that they were trying to pass suffrage for women, it took so long. It like this push for it started in like the 1830s, 1840s. It took almost 100 years because women didn't want it. Only about 4% of women in 1919 wanted anything to do with voting or civil service. Number one, they said we're too busy. In fact, there's pamphlets you can go Google where you can find where the anti-suffrage groups, which far outnumbered the suffrage groups, listed out all the reasons the women themselves thought that this was bad. And they said, we're too busy. We have homes, churches, communities to take care of. We have elderly to take care of, children to take care of. We like planning parties and having a good time and being with our families. We don't want to go to murder trials and hear the grisly details and have to do civil service. We don't want to have to keep up with politics. Politics was then and is now considered something that's kind of gross and yucky and stupid and kind of crude, right? Politics is dirty business. Women didn't want anything to do with that. So no, the whole point is that feminism was never this grassroots groundswell of women who just looked around one day and went, hey, we're being oppressed. This
wasn't a brand new idea, sure.
This sucks. I wanna do military service. I want a corner office and a suit with shoulder pads, and I don't want to spend all day with my children at home. I want to join a corporation and pay taxes, and I want to enlist in the military. And no, women didn't want that then, and they largely do not now, which is why you have such a hard time with your egalitarian dream.
I don't think anyone wants to do that.
Women don't want to enter STEM. Women don't want to run Fortune 500 companies. They don't want to.
Neither do most men.
Yeah, no, you're wrong. You're right. So like same thing with military. Lots of men are ultra violent. That's a masculine feature. And they literally join the military. And one of the reasons that they'll give as a cause for joining the military is that they wanted to kill people. Not kidding. Yeah, it's not a joke.
Kind of and that is a great thing. Yeah, that's super cool.
Well, it's a great thing.
That's good for society.
I mean, it's a great thing if you want to have your borders defended from foreign nationals who will come in and literally kill you. It's a good thing to have those people, isn't it?
If we do have people like expressing those traits, we should probably try to put them in positions where they're productive with them. Can I respond to something, Rachel? What Rachel said. It's one main thing. Like the problem is, if you talk about how all these women didn't want it, well, a lot of other women did want it, and those ones, yeah. Well,
tiny.
Well, those tiny women opened the door for a lot of other women to realize, hey, that actually seems like a good thing. And then once the cat's out of the bag, good luck putting it back in. I mean, actually, bad luck. I really don't want you. The reason I'm here is I don't want you to be able to do that, right? Anyway, that's.
Okay, so maybe we should do what James suggested and jump over to discussing whether or not this is a good thing. Let's take a look at the last 100 years and see how it's worked out. I just posted a piece to my Substack yesterday called, "How's that feminism working out for you?" Turns out it fucking sucks. And we have a whole bunch of data that proves it. If you look at things like marriage and divorce rates, children who are being raised in single parent homes below the poverty level, what happens when you move step parents into the house and how the instance of child abuse goes through the roof at that point. The amount of women who can't cope with trying to have a full-time career because they've had it pounded into their head since they were infants, like I did, that you're a fucking loser if you don't have a corporate job and if you're not making your own money and you can't depend on a man for anything. But they also want to have kids. It's a biological drive we have to have children. So now we have to do everything, right? So then it's like, well, now we're unhappy with the man because the man isn't naturally jumping in and doing all the housework stuff, that he's not doing the dishes. He doesn't mop the floor correctly. So everyone gets divorced. 70% of divorces are initiated by the women. Among college-educated women, that goes up to 90%. Women hold the vast majority of college debt. So now most women go into their childbearing years with tens of thousands of dollars of debt, and they think, how the hell am I ever going to pay that? I guess I can't afford to have kids. So now the birth rates are dropping. Then you could look at a million other things like rates of alcohol and drug abuse, childhood poverty because of single parenthood. You can look at family courts. Everything is a mess. No one is doing better. We have trans kids, for God's sakes. So the past 100 years, the slippery slope, we have just right down the slippery slope, straight into hell. So please tell me, make the argument for how this is so good for everybody. To switch the gender roles, to invert the social order, to tell men they can be women, women they can be men, everyone's the same, and it's all just a social construct. Please defend.
Well, I will say, no one's saying everyone's the same. If you talk to I mean, this is definitely a side note, but if we talk about like the trans stuff, I mean, no one's saying that like cis men are trans men, or that cis women are trans women. But in fact, we're saying that those are like two categories that exist, and that it's okay that those two categories exist. That I know you guys don't think it's okay that those two categories exist, but that's.
You have a point. Get to your point, dude.
I'll leave it at the trans thing for now, but
you literally didn't address a single thing.
Okay, fine. So I think that like a lot of the issues that Rachel listed off are going to be issues with like I mean, frankly, with capitalism, like people having to work for money, people having to work to survive it all, like in the way that we do, like in those structures that exist, like people born in situations and the way that they have to deal with that. You talked about like women being the primary seekers of divorce. Like, what's your alternative? They shouldn't be allowed to get divorced. I don't know how that's like a good, how like forcing women to stay in marriages that they fucking don't want to be.
Yeah,
in.
like the 50s, like the 50s where women were just getting like beat by their husbands and like couldn't do anything.
Like, no, stay there because
that's not
society's
true.
Gonna fall apart if you leave.
That's an absolute trope and a stereotype. You've been watching too much TV. That's not true.
My grandparents grew up in the 50s. They watched their fucking moms get beat.
Dude,
they got beat. Their dads
everyone got beat. So
hold on, Justin here, everybody, one at a time.
None of the men cared about their wives, their mothers, their daughters. They were all just running around beating the shit out of all the women. You really think that?
No, I didn't say that.
And you don't think that there was exception for divorce because of things like abuse, abandonment, insanity, and addiction?
Yeah, but do you think
and it wasn't hard to get a divorce prior to no fault divorce for those reasons?
Sure.
What we have now is divorce because Sally doesn't feel sexy and the neighbor makes her feel sexy, so she's gonna dump the kid's dad. Sorry, kids, daddy has to leave because Mr. Johnson next door makes mommy feel sexy. That's what we have now. That's why women get divorced, not because they're getting beat.
Women are getting divorced to fuck their neighbors, not to.
They're not getting.
Yes, they need to go find themselves.
They're not getting divorced because their husbands are sitting there beating the shit out of them. It's ridiculous.
No, that's a tiny minority.
The most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
I don't. Did I make that claim that most women get divorced because they're getting beat? I don't remember making that claim. This is the same stupid, snarky feminist bullshit you always hear where they go, back in the 50s, where the men with top hats would go home to their perfect hourglass wives and just beat the holy shit out of them because the pot roast wasn't Anyway,
cooked
I think we're getting. I
do want
to. We're moving a bit. Let's get back on the.
Lav is right. It's something I was just gonna say is theoretically, I don't want to take sides. I'm not taking sides. I'm just saying theoretically, if I was on your side, Radical Coder or Lav, a possible response might be, is it the case that the increases in divorce or the other things that happened, as Rachel mentioned, are actually the result of declining masculinity rather than some other cause?
So I was just about to say, obviously, I think that we all believe in social conditioning, right? Obviously, if you grow up and you don't think that voting is even an option, or you don't worry about it, you're taught to can goods and that you will be a mother. It's just like that's like the idea that you're gonna have in your brain, right? It's the same thing. Like Rachel, you just brought up how your family was upset with you, or you were upset with your family for trying to socially condition you into this like feminist society, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that there are certainly reasons. If you can convince all of Jonestown to kill themselves with poison, I think you can convince a generation or generations of women over social conditioning that they shouldn't want to vote, right?
Well,
so I think
them with machine guns.
Sure, but I think that point is a little mute, because I think that there were plenty of women who did want to vote. And to be fair, like Rachel, I'm a tradcon wife at heart. I don't want to fucking work. I don't want to debate. I don't want to do all these things, but I acknowledge that some women do want to do those things, and I think that they should be free to do those things.
Yeah, where are all those women?
It's literally me. And
they are nowhere close to you, Andrew. They are avoiding you.
Well, they're all
frankly, they don't want to talk to you.
It's funny. I think that they're all looking at their cats, and they're very upset.
I have 3 cats, and
I'm sure you do.
And I'm also engaged. So what's your point?
You're right. Your point about social conditioning is correct. And what has happened is we went from one extreme, allegedly. I have a ton of information in my book where I make the argument that life was not that way. all of female history has been rewritten by gender studies professors who portray it that way. That life was this brutish, slavish, horrible existence for women. We were all chained to a stove, made to give birth and bake cookies until we died of hearth death or something. And that's really not true. Women had a lot more agency and arguably more control and power and influence in society than they do now, because they ran everything, like the churches, the schools, the communities. They took care of the elderly. They had like a really strong influence socially. They just weren't in the political sphere, and they weren't as much in the financial sphere. Although a lot of places, a lot of instances, women could own property and have money and inherit things and all that stuff too. So a lot of that's been falsely portrayed. Now we tell women, if you aren't a boss bitch, you ain't shit. And I think that's
exactly. So this brings me to my point, which is that masculinizing women is bad, and keeping masculinity for men also bad. This is my point as a cultural feminist. I don't call myself a radical feminist anymore. I've decidedly become a cultural feminist. I think that feminist values are better for society as a whole, which is why I'm pro-soification for men, right? When we enter this technological age where, you know, things like drones are going to do most of like the military work or things like that, you don't need the brute force masculine energy that we once needed. I think it was great for what it was. I think in the 50s, it was great. I think before we had computers, before we had robots that could do all these things for us, it was incredible. But now we're moving towards
who builds all them drones and robots and weapons? Who does all that?
So now that you're trying to take us on a
socialism?
detour again, Andrew, and I'm not going to let you. I'm not going to allow it.
Why? Just say who does it?
Now that we're moving.
Answer my
Just to hear. You asked the question, Andrew. Let's hear from Lav.
Is she going to answer it?
Well, I'm going to finish what I was saying first.
Yeah, you're not going to answer it.
Now that we're moving towards this technological age, regardless of who made the robots, it's great that like mostly men made these robots, right?
No, it's all men.
Yeah, that's great.
Mostly, maybe.
No, it's pretty much all men.
Incredible. Yeah. And also it was only socially acceptable for men to be scientists for the last 100 years, right? While women were at home raising children.
It's not true.
Well,
did you come up with that idea that women weren't allowed to be scientists?
It's not that they weren't allowed to, it's just social conditioning. So when your parents
are
saying,
saying, women also just weren't allowed to.
Rachel, your wife just literally said that social conditioning is like
important. That's true. But unfortunately, we have a ton of data from like Nordic countries where they've been pushing STEM for like 70 years. And we've actually found that women regress. Less women wanted to go into STEM.
No, I'm not. Okay, great. I'm not. The debate is not whether or not men have more like logical tinkering brains. I think that is a great aspect of masculinity that is like really dope.
But you say we don't keep that. Well, what you're saying is I'm
talking about like the brute energy, so but like women also can.
Are you ever gonna finish?
I guess not, because
like
you won't even let me finish
how long do you
Let's
take?
give Lav another.
Is this
like
what happens?
20...
This is what happens when men see that you have a point. They're trying to gaslight you and being like, "Oh, you can." I mean, we don't have to have this discussion. I wanted to have this discussion because I think that there's a bridge that can be made.
Just give me the thumbs up when you're done, so that I can respond to it. Because you made a bunch of hypocritical points. Anymore. Well, so the first hypocrisy is you said, well, we don't need all this toxic masculinity. It's
I never
super
said
evil.
Toxic masculinity.
Okay, whatever. We need soy boys, brutish, whatever. Because we have drones and we have robots and we have all these neat things. Mm-hmm. All that were made by men who probably were masculine men. You want to take away the same driving motivation that created the same things you want to replace them with.
Okay, wait. So who's to say? Do you think any of these scientists who are making these? I think most of the I don't know if you've ever met a scientist, but most of them aren't like masculine men.
I don't think you know anything about robotics at all. But that's field. Yeah, I'm a roboticist.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, I'm a roboticist, and let me tell you, that's hard ass physical labor. Okay. Machine maintenance has motor. I've worked on robots.
Your job's going to be taken by a robot soon. Isn't that crazy?
No, never.
It's not like
you don't know anything about robots. You have no idea what you're talking about.
He's the person that builds and repairs the robots, and some of them are the size of a house.
Yeah, listen, huge, massive. You think that this is something that's not physically intense labor? You're insane. You have no idea what you're talking about. Do you know what drone repair is like?
Wait, why are we going off on this detour again?
Because you literally just got done telling me that masculinity should be replaced by robotics and by machines and by all the things that masculine men build.
No. I just think that I'm saying that a rephrasing or a redefinition of masculinity is important when we don't need like a brutish man anymore. A strong man, great. A strong man, great.
Well, what's a brutish man?
You said like someone who wants to kill.
You mean like members of our armed forces and special forces and people that we utilize in order to keep you safe at night?
Sure.
A lot of them also
we don't need them.
Think they want to kill, and
we don't need them anymore.
No, it's not that we don't need that anymore. It's just that like it's not becoming a human thing anymore.
So we need brutish
Who
men.
runs into burning buildings to save people? Who runs into floodwaters and hurricanes and saves people?
Clearly
At
women.
this point,
Big,
men and women do these
physically
jobs. There are
strong
female
men.
firefighters.
No, women can't do that.
There
No.
are
They
women who are
physically
firefighters.
can't.
What do you mean they can't? They are.
Yeah, they
Like,
physically
exist.
can't.
No,
they
they're not.
physically
They
can't
no
carry you
female
out.
firefighters.
What
Hold on,
about
just to be sure.
nurses?
Okay, there's
what
too many at a
nurses
time.
that save lives every single day? They're not running into burning
Lots of them
buildings.
are men.
That's beside the point, though.
You
That's
said
beside
what?
the point. You don't think there's a need for physically strong, brave people who are willing
No,
to, who
nobody
can
said
just
that.
like risk
What?
everything?
Yeah, I
and
don't say.
save
I didn't
people?
say that.
Well, then
But
what
we-
is brutish? What is brutish? Just saying that a man has a drive to kill, that's obviously very useful in society. What the hell is wrong with that?
Is that useful? How is that useful? In
I
society?
just gave
Not that
you.
raw, like that
How many
raw
times
and-
do I have to give you the example of the
I guess
United
another
States
time,
military?
Andrew.
And you say over and over again, yes, we do need them for that. Yes, that's true. We need them for that. So you just
No,
keep
I don't
agreeing
think
with
we
me.
want a bloodthirsty military.
needed them for that. We, like I just said, there are like drones and cyborgs and androids being created so that we don't need men to do shit like
You-
that.
Okay,
You have
this is
no-
the city people thing.
What?
This is people that have lived in urban areas their whole life. They have no idea what real life is like outside of a city. They
I
just
lived in
eat the food.
Utah.
Yeah, did you live out in the country where people produce
Yes.
food?
Yes,
Then how do you not know that
I lived on a farm.
We do not have machines that do everything. We still need big ass strong men to do a lot of things in this world.
We
It's
needed
not-
men for that same. We needed men to butcher cows, and now we
Yeah,
have
but we
machines that
still
butcher
do.
cows.
Yeah, who puts
No,
them?
the guys
Wait,
have
wait.
to run all that
So
stuff.
all of this shit that you're
Men
saying.
have
It's
to
also
run
female
those.
butchers.
Yes,
Men,
stop.
no, men have to run those.
They
I'll
do.
explain this
Are
to
the
you.
women gonna stun the cattle so they can be slaughtered? No. Are the women going to be trash men? Are they
They
going to be
can.
sewers?
Yeah.
They're not going to. Women don't want to be trash.
We should open it up so they're allowed to.
I don't
At
think
least, and we should
most.
push
I don't
for
think
people to be
most
allowed to make
men
these
want to
choices.
do that.
Hey,
No,
hey,
you're
hang on,
wrong.
hang on.
You
Rachel,
think women
Rachel,
want to
did you
cell
know?
phone towers?
Did you know that cows just walk into machines and butcher themselves? I didn't know that. This is
Did
news
I
to
say
me.
that?
I do.
Okay.
One thing I want to talk
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
Hold on.
Can women
One
work
sec.
on oil
Okay.
rigs? This is rookie shit, you guys. Can women work on oil rigs?
One thing I want
The
to. I want to
strongest
jump
of them,
in.
probably. I can't
One
imagine
sec.
a woman
Hold
that
on.
wants
One
to.
sec.
Probably could. They probably do.
You guys.
Yeah, they probably
Probably
do.
Yeah,
don't.
they cut the paychecks for the men.
Gosh, you guys just won't stop talking sometimes. So, one thing I do want to talk about. Forgive me, I don't mean I want you guys to talk, but sometimes while I'm trying to interject, just to say a couple of things. One, folks, we're going to go into the Q&A shortly, so if you have any questions, please do fire them in. As well as one thing that could be said is we've talked about physical strength, but at the same time, like whether or not that equates to masculinity, I don't know if everybody would agree with that, because I think originally masculinity was defined by things more like assertiveness or dominance or stoicism, all of which are, I don't know if they're even correlated at all with physical strength. So maybe maybe that's something to consider as well.
Yeah,
I think.
there's a lot of women who like embody those traits and like want to live their lives in very assertive and dominant ways, and those women thrive when they have the opportunity to do so. And in the same way, there's a lot of men who would thrive in more feminine or traditionally feminine roles. And we should open the door so that these people can thrive in the positions that are best for them, so that they can do the things that we need people to do with those skills.
True. And if your point stands that it's some like evolutionary biological basis on men and women wanting to fall into their, assigned roles, then making it okay would not change that, because they would just naturally defer to their roles.
What about the societal damage in the interim time where we try to reach your insane egalitarian utopia where you fucking destroy everything in your path
What does egalitarian mean to you?
in order to make sure that Radical Coder over there can act like a ladyboy online?
what does egalitarian mean to you? Because I think egalitarian means to me that we have the same options, but we might have different strengths, right?
Then why are there quotas? Why do we demand that 50% of CEOs be women? Why do we say 50% of senators have to be women when women don't want to do those things?
Well, it seems like a lot
do
of
we
women
say
do wanna
that?
do those things, right?
Wait,
Yeah, we do say that.
Wait, is that happening right
Yeah.
now?
Yeah, there are
California
quotas.
has quotas.
Yeah, and of
boards
course,
and
and,
stuff.
and there are more women now who want to be in these roles. And
Sure,
and there's
that makes
less
sense
opportunity for
in
them a lot of
places
ways,
like
so-
California.
Sure.
It makes sense in places like California where there are as many women going for those roles. But in a place like Utah, yeah, that wouldn't make sense because I think less women want those things. So
Well,
it makes
no, it wouldn't make sense because the Mormons there would tell the women to shut the fuck up, and they're not going to do it, right?
Yeah, that's
because they're awesome.
anyway.
Because they're awesome.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
true.
That's,
When
Guys,
you
that's the toxic
there's a
masculinity
couple of
thing.
things
Like, no,
that-
women, shut the fuck up.
If
Get
I was-
back in your place. It's bullshit.
if I was living in the 50s and I was married to Andrew, Jesus Christ, Rachel,
No, listen,
blink
listen.
twice if you need help.
Don't do that because don't do that. And here's why. You would not
Protect
have
his
had.
masculinity.
Why do you think, you've come on here and I had a ton of respect for you for talking about the horrors of sex work
Mhm,
and the exploitation of women.
mhm.
And the reason that all these young girls, beautiful young girls like you, end up on OnlyFans, being sex workers, selling their bodies for money is because feminism taught them that is good and equality. It's empowering. It's wonderful.
I don't think that's true.
I know there are some feminists who aren't in agreement with that, but they're in the minority. And now we have
No,
this
yeah.
huge sex industry, huge, because it's empowerment, right? So no, Andrew is not abusive. The 50s were not horrible.
I don't
And
think
your
Andrew's
life-
abusive.
Your life could
I
have,
think he's smug and I think
you
he's an asshole.
probably would have
The 50s were
never
horrible
ended
for a
up
lot of
in a
people.
position of
I agree
being a
with both
sex
those things.
worker. If
Yeah.
you had traditional masculine men, your dad would be there and your dad would say, "Over my dead body. You're not going to be a sex worker, and I will snatch you up and make sure that doesn't happen." Men are protectors.
But if only he had been, maybe
Men,
if
Women
he,
are also protectors.
but maybe if your dad had been a little bit more brutal, he would have made sure you didn't go into that.
It's
line of
not,
work.
but see, that's the wrong way to think of it because it's like
I think
women
I
that men
watched.
saying no is violence. Women think that men telling them no is violent and that it's abusive. I write about this all the time. To women, a guy saying, "No, you're being hysterical," that's abuse, right? Sometimes women are hysterical. We're filled with estrogen. We have periods. I'm a woman. I have these things where once a month I go a little bit insane for a couple days and I cry over nothing. I cry at a coffee commercial. Andrew comes
Yeah.
in and goes, "Babe, just go take a nap. Just take a nap. You'll be fine." And I'm like,
Sure.
and I go take a nap and I'm fine.
And what is that? Well, wait. But what is that? Because that's empathy, which is traditionally a feminine
No,
trait.
really, it's not empathy. It's his logical brain going, "She doesn't normally act like this. I think I know what's going on." And she's going to insist that she's
No,
fine.
that's nurturing and empathy and kindness,
Right.
which are all
And those can involve a
feminine
lot of
traits.
logical processes to like make them.
No.
Well, no,
Yes.
I don't know. Is it or can
Also,
I use
on
my?
average, why is it that,
Can I
that
use my
women's
1950s voice?
IQs are higher than men's?
Well, I don't know.
women
They
are
sure
log-
seem not to use them.
Women's IQ.
Maybe the women you speak
not at the
to.
top of the curve, though. At the top of the IQ curve,
It's men.
mostly men.
Sure.
So the very
for
best,
now.
the very
For
best
now.
are men.
No,
For now.
women have higher verbal IQs on average. Men have more.
They have higher
we're
IQs
totally
and
different.
EQs on average.
We are totally different, and what men provide is necessary for
Well,
stabilization.
Have you?
of
I'm
society.
confused because have you seen brain scans? Because they're actually far more alike than
Oh
they are
God,
different.
not the brain scans again. Listen, you
No, they're
do
women.
you do
Male and
understand.
female brains are like far
Yeah,
more
you
alike than they
do.
are different.
You do
Yeah.
understand that IQ is also shaped heavily by environmental standards and everything.
Exactly.
Every-
So
Hey,
when you bring
let
up
me
that
finish,
men's
lady.
IQs are higher,
Relax, calm
it
down,
would make
lady.
sense that those are also
Calm down. If it's environmental standards, we
Thank
brought
you.
up that the public schools are tailored specifically towards women and female behavior. Men are
And it's
not.
been that way for
men,
so long.
Yeah, men are not. Well, listen, let me ask you a question. Were these curves in the IQ stable 100 years ago where women on average were higher?
I don't think that we can look at IQ measurements from 100 years ago. It wasn't measured the same way at all. Like it was measured by like skull shapes in a lot of cases. Like this, like IQ has come a very long way.
What I'm asking is like when you're tailoring out these things, when you say on average, and then you got to remember that IQ is heavily environmental based, and that the environment that women are in right now is very much tailored towards their comfort, towards them learning, towards them. Okay, inside of school systems, it was not uncommon for men to get into fistfights all the time. Just even when I was younger, if you got into a fistfight, it was a suspension. Now it's an arrestable offense. It has become more and more.
Is that so?
Yeah, it is so. And it's become more and more ass kissy towards women. They want the little boys to act like little girls. Fold your hands. Be quiet.
Don't fight each other.
Blah, blah, blah.
Don't fight each other.
Yeah, men
don't beat the
fight.
shit out of each other.
Yeah,
Men-
don't beat each other up.
Men
Again,
fight.
they're proving their ignorance, because even psychologists say that for boys, rough play, and even for little girls, rough play is an essential part of learning, and children who don't experience it suffer developmentally. The world isn't supposed to be a padded room where everything is
agree. I can agree with
kind
that.
and comfortable.
But like,
So
yeah,
stop
we need to-
advocating for that.
but if
ruining people.
but if we're going to allow like this rough play and stuff, then what we should do is make sure that it's done safely. Like
Yeah.
let's get them
the
we don't-
pads and the yellow. Let's get them the
Lord
yellow
almighty.
pads.
because what happens?
Are you advocating for children to beat each other up?
Yes,
basically,
yes.
yeah,
Let
you
them
are,
fight.
which is-
Let the
which
little
is
bastards
weird.
fight. Let the little bastards fight. Listen, it was very common when I was in school, and it wasn't. By the way, I'm a millennial. It's not like this was fucking eons ago
Could've
that I
fooled
was
me.
in high school. It was okay. It was expected even that there would be fistfights. Nobody thought that much of it.
It still
If you got
happens.
caught
Still do
smacking the
this.
Yeah,
shit
I
out
don't
of
think
somebody,
that. I think that fist fights are still happening.
you will get arrested. It is assault. They will press
Nice.
charges. It has become a much bigger deal
Or if
than
you're
what
like
it used
a black
than
student,
what
you're
it
probably
used
more
to
likely to
be.
get arrested. Yeah,
And
yes.
the school to prison pipeline
And
is,
yes,
really
little-
disproportionately affects them. Yeah.
Little kids often like to fight with each other. They like to kick the holy shit out of each other. And yeah, that's pretty much okay, especially for young men. They do it all the time. There's no problem with that.
It's how they find boundaries, and if you don't let them do that, you end up with school SHOOTERS. That's why you end up with that, because
I got into
of this
fist
weird
fights.
petri dish where we put boys in schools and even girls, and we're like, you always have to be quiet and kind and soft and squishy, and it's not real life. It's harmful to people. And
Well,
again,
I think that's also harmful.
neither of you have addressed any of the massive amount of I know it was a bit of a gish gallop, but please explain to
Sorry,
me
we
how
already
broken
said this.
families, all the broken families are better because we have no fault divorce, which means I don't like you anymore. Somebody else is hotter. I'm just bored. I want to go eat, pray, love. I want to go find myself. I want to go see the world. And so we're going to just break up families. And what you talked about with social conditioning is true. If your mom's divorced, your aunt's divorced, your best friend is divorced, your neighbor's divorced, you get divorced. It's what everyone's doing, right? So it's not important to have stable families for kids to grow up in. It's important for Karen to feel sexy and fulfilled in her life. Fuck that. Excuse my language, but you don't just get to bust up families on a whim. It should take a lot more. It takes way more to break a contract of any other kind in society. But because of the feelings of women, we're just going to make divorce this like virus that spreads through.
I think women who are that stupid should not have kids. I think women.
Well, that's most of them.
What?
That would be most women.
I don't think most women divorce their husbands because one person makes them feel sexier.
Most kids are even born out of wedlock now. People don't even bother to get married. They just have baby daddies now. You think that's
sure?
I think when you reach a point, I think when women reach a point where
it's
they're
not
going
good for
to,
kids.
I think when women reach a point where they are going to divorce for the hot neighbor or whatever, there's so much else going on under that. Like it's not just that. Like you can imagine that that's what's going on. You can accuse all these women of only just wanting to like
it is.
being like
It's a
super
lot going
hypergamous or
on,
whatever.
but it's because
But,
we
like,
tell
there's
them
more to the story.
it's because we tell them they must have a career and they must also have kids and they should also volunteer at the PTA and we tell women to do everything. Raising children is a full-time job.
Yeah,
it's not a
that's a
nights and
problem.
weekends gig.
I agree.
It's not a nights and weekends thing. So how can you tell all the women they need to go be career women? Who's going to have the babies?
I don't think either of us are advocating for that. But I also think that Ryan would also advocate if a woman, I think that there's masculine and feminine in everything. And I think if a woman wants to be the masculine and wants to work, she should be able to. And if a man wants to stay home and raise the kids, he should be able to.
Do you think that's
say
optimal?
that once you have them.
I think it can be. I think I've met plenty of men.
Well, everything can be everything, but do you think it's optimal for society to organize itself around men staying at home and women working?
I think a society that allows that option to exist is better than one that doesn't.
I'm just asking. I'm asking this specifically.
I think a society. Do you think
that society would be more optimal with men working and women staying at home, or women working and men staying?
No, I don't think we should. Sorry, go ahead.
I think the most optimal society.
If you had to choose the two, all else equal.
No, because you're asking.
All else equal.
You're asking an impossible question.
All else equal.
Because I think that I would rather live in a society.
Yeah, I didn't ask you that.
Optimal
two options. You get two
in which
options.
we had agency and free will. That is my value.
So all else equal. One more time. All else equal. If you
don't want to engage with it,
only have these two choices,
you just want to control this
because
narrative.
you avoided my entire.
You're pigeonholing me in a thing that I'm not trying to advocate for.
So you don't
let you do
there's
it.
a difference.
We're not saying we should swap the gender roles. We're saying we should expand what it means for them.
It doesn't matter if it's
exactly.
the dad at home or the mom at home. It's fine. Everything's fine. No, we don't live in libertarian equal utopia. And if you two
kind of do,
children,
and that you guys are against
neither of you have kids. I have raised 5 children. The man can't nurse the baby. He can't get up in the middle of the night and nurse the baby.
He can, not with his breast.
I had a pump and everything else. It is not the same. It's not the same. And when you have kids, you'll understand how it's not the same. Dad being at home and mom trying to hack it in the career world and support an entire family so dad can stay home. Does it technically work in a tiny minority of cases?
This is the problem.
Yes,
this is the problem.
We shouldn't tell people to do this.
Okay, Ryan had just said this. I don't think that we're advocating for a switch of the gender roles. We're trying to broaden them. So both parents can be nurturers and both parents can work.
But you can't have it all at once. That's not how the world works.
Why can't you?
You guys live in a libertarian utopia where we're all just interchangeable widgets. And I want to address...
No, we live in a liberal democracy where people should be able to make choices that improve their lives and their families' lives.
You're not liberal
you
democracy.
Think they should be allowed to do it.
We can't hear because there's too many people speaking at
once.
once.
We're not liberal democracy enjoyers. Ryan said he thinks capitalism. He thinks capitalism's the problem.
I think capitalism is a structure that we live under, whether or not you like it or not.
Unluckily for you, I'm in the middle of writing the second book, which is about the experiments we did with feminism in Bolshevik Russia and how.
Are you allowed to write? Are you allowed to write books? Andrew lets you write books. That's like a masculine trait.
It's not. Women have always been authors. Again,
no, but why aren't you at home? Why aren't you at home knitting blankets and clothing for your children?
I am at home homeschooling the kids, cleaning the house, and cooking the meals.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Andrew have a job.
Hold on, one at a time.
Listen. Be quiet and listen. The kids are older now. They're between 10 and 21. So now I have entered a phase of life where I do have a little bit of time. And this is what I want to write about. That's fine. Women have always done that. Women have always had a second half of life after motherhood.
But your ambition. Your ambition.
No, it's not ambition.
It is ambition.
I'm putting out information.
I'm not going to do shit like that. I don't have the ambition to do something like that. That is ambition.
I'm a smart person. It's
let's assume for a second.
You come off as very logical. You come off as very self-sufficient. And this is what we're advocating for, is the broadening of things. You can be a mother, you can be a nurturer, and you can also be dominant in your field, dominant in this conversation, assertive, ambitious.
I was going to say, I appreciate your assertiveness in this conversation, frankly.
That does not mean that I have to counter Andrew and try to dominate him. That doesn't mean that
we are not advocating for that.
We don't think couples should dominate each other.
One person at a time. Hold on. Steady.
With you guys.
All right, let's hear from Ryan. Ryan, I want to hear from Ryan. Ryan hasn't spoken for a while, and then we'll come back to you.
Yeah, but that's good.
Yeah. I was just saying that I've appreciated Rachel's assertiveness, dominance, and competitive nature in this debate. I think she strived and proved my point completely that women should be able to embody these roles. It's fantastic. Thanks, Rachel.
True. She's come off as very logical, where Andrew's just been a smug asshole, an emotional smug asshole. Very feminine qualities, Andrew. How tall are you?
I'm sorry?
How tall are you?
Well, I don't know. We don't answer questions here, remember?
Apparently.
That's
Yeah.
also a very gross thing. That would be like him asking you like how big your boobs are, because
I'll
we all know
tell
why
him
you're
if he
asking
wants to
that.
know, but I'm
You're
not sure that
hoping-
you want him
you're
to ask
hoping
me
that
that.
he-
What do you
Okay,
want?
let's move
You know?
forward. Let's
Yeah,
go
so
back to the
no.
topic.
Let me answer this directly, okay? But if I do, will you tell me how many men you've slept with?
I will.
Okay, I'm 6 foot tall.
You're
Me too.
lying.
No, I'm not lying. I'm 6 foot tall.
Okay. Prove
Answer? Give me the answer.
Oh, you want to know how many men I've slept with?
Yeah.
6.
I thought you were a prostitute.
No.
No, just the OnlyFans?
Yeah, I slept with 2 people in real life for money.
Ugh.
All right, despite Andrew's strange curiosity, let's go back to the actual
He
topic.
really wanted to know. Rachel, are you going to let him ask me a question like that?
Can we talk about socialism? Because I would like to tell you about how in communist Russia, they told the women that they had to stop seeing themselves as mothers and start seeing themselves as labor units, and that the place to support Mother Russia was in the factory. And so they had daycares, which were called creches. They had free paid for abortion in state hospitals, which only lasted 16 years because they had a 3-to-1 ratio of abortions to births, and the population was about to collapse. Okay, that's what happened when you tried.
So I'm definitely not advocating for a world where people identify themselves as labor units. I think they should
That's
be
what
like.
you get under a socialist.
Okay, well, I didn't even say anything about socialism. I just mentioned that we live under
You said
capitalism. Like, that's
capitalism
not a
is
bad
the
thing
reason, and if
necessarily.
we didn't have to
Like,
work, and I'm
I
telling
didn't-
you, under a socialist government, yes,
So-
all the women
so-
would
so
be
the
encouraged
point-
to work.
The point that I was making is that right now we need families to make at least enough income, right, to make sure that their basic needs are met, so that they can, so that one or the other, either one or the other or none can stay home and take care of the kids, or they can figure out a way to get those kids taken care of.
So why
And-
don't we encourage mothers to stay home and raise their children full time
We
like
can.
they ought
I think we
to?
should.
And
think we
then
We
wages
should.
go up for men.
Right now,
I think
women
a lot of
barely even have that opportunity.
wait,
It's more expensive
aren't
than
a lot
ever.
of feminists pushing for maternity leave to be longer?
No,
Yeah, we're like the only
women-
developed
no,
country in the
they're
world that
actually-
doesn't have paid parental leave.
What?
It's insane.
Yeah.
No, feminists want women in the workforce. Whenever women workforce
Women
levels
wanna be in the
drop, they
workforce.
scream and yell. No, what they want is they want you to be able to take 2 years of maternity leave and come back at the exact same pay that a man who didn't have to leave for 2 years is making. That's
Well, I
what
think the
they
man
want.
should be able to leave also.
Yeah, parental leave should be gender
Okay,
neutral.
Yeah.
But that's not how things work. How are
Not
you
in
gonna
America,
have
but in
both?
a lot of developed countries, yeah. it
Yeah,
does.
but they should work that way.
It's
We're
pretty well.
advocating for things to work that way.
Yeah, it's better that way.
Yeah.
It's base.
So
If
So I gotta-
you already said
So I can
that,
stop
that
mothering-
children
Hold on,
thrive that
one at a
children
time.
thrive with feminine and masculine, wouldn't it make sense
When-
for both a man and woman to raise their kid together?
They do, but when is it okay for moms to start being part-time? When is it okay for me to be gone from my kids for 45 hours a week?
It
when you
seems
add the commute?
I think that this is the main difference in our value system, is that you say when is
You
it
don't have
okay
one.
to allow people to do things, when I'm like, okay, when is it, like, I want people to be able to make that choice with their agency. I don't think that I'm in control of it.
Yeah, and that has not worked. We have done that for 100 years and it's disastrous.
Yeah, authoritarian rule does
No,
not
I'm
work
not talking
either. You're
about-
against
I'm not
communism.
talking about authoritarianism. I'm talking
Yes,
about
you are.
incentivizing. I'm talking about you incentivize.
I agree. I think I
Hold on,
have
just
made
there's
this
too many
argument.
people
I've
speaking at
made this
once.
argument a billion times. We shouldn't. I'm a big advocate for UBI, especially with women who want to stay home. It's
So
hard
you-
to live in this society, right? A
So you
dual
guys
income
think-
household is probably necessary at this point. Dual
So
income
we-
to live.
So we incentivize everyone to just follow their heart and do what they want. Is that what we do? We just incentivize everyone to
What other
follow
reason
their
are we
heart.
given the gift of life from God for than to enjoy life?
Because for service, actually, it's the libertarian ethos is the totally wrong way to think about it. You're not here to follow your heart and do what you desire. You're here to serve
work?
others. You are here to serve others and to make the lives of
Imagine
everyone
how much
around you
free
better.
time if we didn't have to work. How much free time we could do in like.
But
Oh, yeah, well-
everyone has to work to live.
you think-
there is no utopia where we don't work.
So hang on, I've heard this before. See,
Yeah, go
robots
ahead,
are
Andy.
robots are going to replace the workforce, right, Lav?
Not the work, not all of the workforce. I think obviously like
They're gonna evolve
psychiatry,
the workforce.
doctors, but I think to some
Mhm.
degree, yeah, a lot of jobs will be taken by robots for sure.
Mhm. And what's your evidence for that?
My evidence,
Yeah.
the way that like soda machines already exist, or the way that
Yeah, you mean that
mass butchering plants exist.
those machines that a guy has to go and fill up. that come from a plant filled with robots that have
You don't think that they'll make robots to take those jobs?
Thousands of employees, which are running a snack line, one of the most high-paced, fast-paced robotics jobs you can possibly have, or just a staff loading job.
Okay,
in fact,
drones are becoming mailmen now?
The labor shortage, the labor shortage that
it's because of women in the workforce. I know.
No, it's not because of women in the workforce.
Well, it actually is.
No, it's actually not. The labor shortage.
No, wait. It like actually is after World War II. It literally is.
Lav, the labor shortage that we're currently looking at in the United States.
Wait, hold on.
Right this second. Okay. Do you know what caused it?
The labor shortage?
Mm-hmm.
It's years of women being in the workforce.
It's
more people being in the workforce. Yes.
More people.
We did not have this labor shortage before World War II.
We didn't have this labor shortage before World War II. And what was the population pre-World War II?
Okay, it's population, but also there are more people in the workforce because
population.
Women are working.
No, it's
I'm making like your point. I'm making like your side's point.
Well, no, but you're making it incorrectly. You don't know what you're talking about. You think that you're going to be able to replace all these jobs that everybody has with robots.
I didn't say all of them.
I've heard the left.
I didn't say all of them.
Okay, I'm paraphrasing, but I've heard the left make this argument 1,000 times that robots are going to come and replace the labor force. They're not going to come replace the labor force.
I don't know where you live, but in Los Angeles, they're there are little robots taking like Postmate orders to people now. Like that job is taken. There are like self-drivable cars now that will be able to like.
No, there's no self-drivable cars that are driving around and hauling the freight, which is what we really need them for, right?
Sure, I think there will be. There will be. Certainly.
No, there won't be.
Okay. I think there will be.
Google's been trying this now for how many years, and it's been a disaster for them.
Less than 20.
Because, do you know why? It's because we can't get them to make moral decisions, right? The cars don't know how to make a moral choice, and drivers do. Like they know that if there was a family of 2 and a family of 5, for instance, and they had to swerve at the family of 2, even though it's the lesser of 2 evils.
How do you know how many people are in a car? If you're in a car.
No, I'm talking about a self-driving car.
No,
a self-driving car can't logic out moral problems.
No, but like a human can't access files. How many people are in this car or this car?
Yeah, and a computer might be. If you're just going to say it's a raw, if it's like if the moral decision is made. Hang on, I barely talked. If the moral decision is made off of like a trolley problem where it's like 1 person here and 5 person here, like computers can count.
It's just an example.
They're really good at that. I promise.
Radical. It's just an example. What I'm saying is that the self-driving vehicles can't make these great logical calculations that to you seem like they're second nature when you drive. You get so used to it, you don't even really have to think when you're driving anymore. Robotics is not nearly as advanced as you think it is.
I agree.
And what's happening right now is people are really banking a lot on robotics being able to save the labor force, and it can't. We need more human beings. And what we've been doing is importing them from other countries instead of getting our own domestic population up, which is insane. Now, Rachel's saying that this has all been derived from feminism trying to somehow skew these 2 roles. And the way that these roles have been skewed is that, we're looking at women in the workforce who now become a taxable bracket of the population. And it takes 2 incomes now to support an entire family. That was by design. That was not by accident. And that's the problem.
Yes, that's 100% true.
It should cost less to raise a family. I can agree with you on that.
I can end this debate right now. I will listen to feminists and people like Ryan. He probably considers himself a male feminist. I will listen to feminists about what we should do in society when I start seeing the feminists volunteer to be sewage treatment workers, garbage collectors, cement and concrete layers. When I see them building the roads and being iron workers and doing 20-hour shifts on an oil rig or flying airplanes, I guess I'll listen to the feminists. But until then, I like my modern society that runs and works, and only men build it and keep it going. The end.
But but to some degree, I thought that your argument was also that was biological. So even if we broaden these definitions, it won't change if most men want to do things like that.
You got it, which means that the men should stay in charge and the women should run families and communities.
Should stay in charge is a strange thing to say, though.
Why is it strange?
It should be encouraged and it should be incentivized. We should uphold motherhood as a wonderful and great.
Why would it need to be incentivized if it was biological, if they wanted to do these things?
It needs to be incentivized because we spent the last 50 years discouraging it and shaming women and going,
okay,
oh, you're
but if it's biological,
and watch soap operas.
But if it's biological,
no, it's not 100% biological.
It's both. I thought we established at the beginning there's biological factors.
Everything
and
everything is a mix of genetics and environment.
So just to be clear, you think we should push for social forces that encourage women to not want to do things like be pilots and whatever, you mentioned pilots, right?
No, rather
put it like that. You would
rather we
say,
think it's okay to encourage
men. Hang on, you would say you wouldn't put it like that, but functionally that's what you want to do, right?
No, I wouldn't say you can't be a pilot. Off to jail with her.
I don't care what you'd say. I'm asking you functionally what you want to do and what you want.
Yes, I'll tell you.
Okay.
I'll tell you. We should go back to what we were doing for the rest of human history prior to this.
Where they weren't allowed to be in those positions at all?
Where we encourage and venerate motherhood and traditional female roles for women.
Why not venerate parenthood? Why not venerate being a good parent? Why do you have to obsess over being tied to the biological sex in this particular position?
Because I'm a mother and I know that Andrew,
you can be a mother. No one's telling you not to be a mother.
You can't do my job that I can do as a mother. No way. You would be a great dad, but you can't be a mom. Only I can be a mom. I want to be a mom.
I'm also confused because personal anecdote, because you brought in a personal anecdote. I do not do the fucking dishes. My room is constantly a mess. I don't feed the dogs because I'm spacey.
Feminism.
I'm spacey. No, it's not feminism.
Good.
It's not feminism.
It's fine.
No, but you know who does it? But my fiance does all of those things and he loves to do it. He loves to feed the dogs. He loves to take care of the dogs. I'm a lover. I'll pet on my dogs all day, but I just don't, it's not feminism. I just don't think that way.
Well, let me know how that works for you when you've got 3 or 4 kids running around and then we'll talk about it then.
Well, no, when we have children, which we will, I want to have as many kids as possible. It'll be a joint effort. Because
then you're going to have to get over your aversion to housework because it's
Of course I will.
Just like men don't wake up in the morning
but
and go, I want to be a trash collector, but someone's got to do
but
that.
I have picked a partner who I know is an equal in the way that they will nurture our children and the way that they will take care of our children.
Sorry.
I'm
I mean,
just saying
statistically,
the
he's
success
going
rate
to
among
divorce
those marriages is very low.
That's like
no, statistically, I'm going to divorce him.
Right. Statistically, you're going to divorce him.
Yeah.
So
maybe, and then I'll move on to the next one who will take the brunt of the work.
Right. I agree.
And then what about your kids? What about your kids though? When you do that, what do you say to your children when you kick their dad out? That's
wait. I was in a hypothetical. I'm not going to divorce him. I might fuck the neighbor on the DL. If he makes me feel sexy.
It's really not funny that women just kick the dad out of the house. In fact, were either of you raised by a single mom?
Yeah,
no.
Partially.
Okay. Did your mom work?
Yeah, of course.
Wouldn't you have rather she stayed home with you?
I mean, probably would have been good to have a parent.
No one has ever told me. I ask this question all the time to people with your opinion, and no one has ever said to me, "You know what, Rachel? I'm glad my mom was at work all day.
Yeah,
it was good for her."
Good thing none of us are advocating for like kids to be like away from their parents more as much as possible. Like if that was our position, then like, oh, you got us.
Wait, Rachel. I had a completely traditional childhood. Like my mom and dad. Like my dad worked mostly. My mom stayed home mostly. She worked part-time.
You wish your mom was gone all day at work? And that you went to daycare?
2-minute warning before the Q&A.
Maybe.
No.
Maybe.
You don't. I wish you were raised.
No, I wish my mom sucked. So I wish I would have spent more time with my dad. But he was out working. But he was much more maternal than my mom was.
But
at every point in my childhood.
But would you have rather been raised by an $11 an hour immigrant worker at a daycare? No one.
Is that the option?
Nobody says.
Where did the immigrant come from? Hold on.
That's who works in daycares.
There might. I mean, there's plenty of families where like that immigrant worker might be a better.
No. What I was saying is that my dad was much more maternal. I would have preferred to have the nurturing, the maternal aspect come from my dad instead of this like gender role that was making my mom stay home with me. This very masculine, unloving woman stay home with me.
What you would have wanted is a mother who embraced motherhood and thought it was.
It doesn't matter who it was coming from. I would have wanted a maternal person at all.
And we should encourage all women to be maternal
and men.
But we don't. The boomer
We should all be more
generation of
nurturing. I
women,
agree.
your mom's generation had it beat into their heads that motherhood was
My mom
holding
is
back.
42.
Hey, yeah, I'm 42. It was beat into our heads. It was beat into our heads that motherhood is a waste of time, and
Didn't
that
work on
it's
you?
holding us back, and that we
Yeah,
are
it didn't work on
being
you. That's
oppressed.
true. It didn't work on you. And it didn't work on, it didn't work on my mom either. My mom really wanted to fit the role. My mom forced herself to fit into a role that she did not excel in. She didn't. And she forced herself,
Yeah,
and it
but I
didn't
mean,
work.
But that's an outlier.
I doubt
Seems like
that.
forcing people
into
I
positions that they
really
don't.
doubt that's what
Of course
happened.
there are-
I really doubt that. I think she wished she was going, if I had a career, I wouldn't be bored. If I had a career, things would be better because the
Well,
feminist life.
If she had a career, she wouldn't have spent so much time drinking. That's the real problem.
That's another big problem.
That's the
Rates
real
of
problem.
alcohol among women have skyrocketed since feminism. Sorry, it's one
Is
of the
that true?
biggest statistics.
Yeah, it's true.
Yes. It has gone.
I don't know. I've seen Mad Men.
Alcoholism's probably been on the rise in men and women.
And
I
yeah, it
imagine
has
right
been.
now.
Substance abuse is
And
on the rise for everyone.
It's
Just
probably,
do a quick Google search and you will find that the rise of alcoholism in women over the last 50 years has been catastrophic.
I'm not
The
disputing that.
amount of fetal alcohol syndrome has risen exponentially, and women are trying to cope with feeling like they need to be career women and also wanting a marriage and kids and trying to do everything all at once because they've been sold a big fat lie.
Mhm.
This might be a great opportunity to go into the Q&A. So do want to say, folks, if you haven't have any questions, we're going to fire through these fast. So want to let you know, you might want to get it in really fast. Fact checker says, actually, this one was from Maddie. TRCB says, shout out. We got that one. Coffee Mom says, men are afraid that women will laugh at them. Women are afraid men will kill them. You asked why women, quote unquote, need permission. That's why. Is that okay?
Can you repeat that one more time, James?
Yep, they said men are afraid that women will laugh at them, but women are afraid that men will kill them. You asked why women, quote unquote, need permission. That's why.
It's all bullshit. So most women aren't walking around in any kind of fear that men are going to kill them. There's
What?
almost, they're not.
I don't know about
They're not
that.
walking
What?
around in tremendous fear that men are just going to randomly fucking kill them. That's just
What?
I think a lot of women live with that every day. Yeah.
Yeah, what? That is an
It's, like,
insane
really
thing to
common.
say. That's why
Why?
women go out in pairs. That's why they go to bathrooms together. That's why they don't walk at night. What the fuck do you mean?
Wait a second. You're saying that there's fear mongering that causes women, generally in inner cities, to have those feelings, right? A lot of fear mongering. Same reason that we got rid of things like switchblades, because there was a movie that came out that vilified switchblades. So people thought that gangbangers all carried switchblades. The government actually moved to outlaw them. Same thing with Thompson submachine
Wait,
guns.
I'm lost. Where'd we go?
What I'm saying is that the chances of you getting assaulted, even if you're by yourself by a man, aren't very high.
Okay.
We've got to move to
whatever.
the next one. This one coming in from Elder T says, most men had to be given the right to vote by other men.
True.
That's also true.
That's true.
This one from Ben Thorpe, aka Abel, says, if James would agree to it, I would love to debate Andrew on the topic, should we trust institutions more in our society? On this
No.
channel, Modern Day Debate, a truly neutral platform. Is that one of
No.
your enemies, Andrew?
He's an ankle biter. He just
No.
follows Andrew around the internet and demands. to
I've
be-
already debated him and destroyed him on it. There's no
This
reason to
one
keep
from
him.
Brandon.
Real quick. I have one thing to say on that, James. I actually, if you're up for it, it's a spicy one. I actually would like to debate you personally on whether or not Modern Day Debate is a neutral platform, but that's for another time.
Juicy. I like that. Brandon Hansen says, Lav, the chemicals in the makeup you wear to appear more feminine were mined by guys who would kill you if you threatened their family.
Oh, I would argue that I don't need to appear more feminine as I have hips and breasts and a feminine bone structure, but I do wear makeup to look more attractive because people are nicer to me when I look more attractive.
Stuart Robinson says, Lav, would you date RD? I think they mean, normally I think Radical Coder, but it says RD, not RC. It says RD, were you going to hide when the war comes to you? I think they do mean you, Ryan. Is your last name like Douglas or something? So they
No, I
say,
think they just mean RC. I think they just couldn't type it right.
rather
Would
than
I-
everyone has an interest in Lav's sexual life, but let's go to their
Of
question
course.
for you, Ryan. Where are you going to hide when World War III comes to you, Ryan?
I will fulfill what necessary roles I can when if World War III comes to my door. I will do my best to make sure that the people around me are safe and that I can assist them and keep us all alive as much as possible.
No, I'm sure
I would hope most people would.
We all have faith in you. We all have faith in you.
You're
the guy.
You're
the guy I want next to me when that pops off.
Okay.
Brandon Hansen says Lav will probably hit age 30 and suddenly become very traditional in her values.
I'm very traditional now.
I have it on good authority that this happens to online e-girls.
I'm very traditional now. I'm for like liberty. People can choose their own destiny. I have obviously totally. I want a trad life. I do. I want totally. A trad life. Yeah. But I don't think that every woman does.
Yeah, and the best thing is that our system allows people to make that choice, while your system says, no, you have to be in this box because your chromosome said so.
Yeah.
I think that most would if they weren't told that they're a loser, if they're not a boss ass.
I think I agree with you. I think I agree with you. I think
let's go back to not incentivizing boss bitchery. Let's go back to incentivizing motherhood.
Or it's incentivizing do whatever you want to do. Let's not put anyone in a box.
You have to be a moral relativist to think that. That's moral relativism. Just saying.
Okay. Sure.
This one coming in from Do Appreciate Your Questions. Tim Zimlick says, Radical Coder, were you or any of your male friends growing up given ADD medication? Boys in the last few decades have literally been drugged to suppress their natural boisterousness. Can you justify this?
He's on it right now. He's on it right now.
So that's actually an interesting conversation because I definitely exhibited ADHD throughout my life. However, it was my choice to start taking medication when I was 24, and it drastically improved my capability to stay focused on things and get shit done. And honestly, I'm all the better for it. I'm glad that I got to make that decision, and I do think it helps people. So I don't know. I think that's a good thing, but I don't think it's good to overprescribe it. But I don't necessarily think it's always overprescribed. And it can be. That's a problem. So.
Gotcha. And this one from Reverend Coffin's other son says, Andrew, my uncle was the stay-at-home parent for 6 years, raising my cousins while my aunt worked as a head nurse. All their kids turned out fine.
Yeah. Yeah, there are
always outliers.
There are outliers to the situation.
No, but yes, and the outliers are good.
What if look at is your name Andrew?
Should remain outliers.
Relax. So anyway,
and they will.
Outliers. The way that works is they're called outliers for a reason, because they're fucking outliers. What we're talking about is broad societal prescriptions. We're not talking about the onesie twosie outliers where you can point to and say this thing worked in that instance. Even in those cases, it still likely wasn't optimal.
This one coming in from Do Appreciate Your Question. Noah's Ark, Kansas.
Because I have statistics. That's how I would know that.
Yeah, but statistics is generalizations over. That doesn't mean for everyone.
That's my whole point. I know, but we still know what optimization means, right?
Yes, sure, but the problem is that you want like the authoritarian rule to force people into.
We want social norms.
Also, the more of those outliers that are allowed to be in those
social norms.
The more of those outliers that are allowed to be in those positions, the more you might find that people who are even more qualified might see themselves becoming into that position. So.
Juicy Noah's Ark, Kansas says opposition strategy to build up the female ego with compliments and disparage the male. I rest my case.
I haven't complimented any women today, except for Rachel, I guess.
I think Lav's new debate tactic, maybe this has just always been her debate tactic, is just cope laughing through the whole debate. It's just like she says something, cope laughs. You say something, cope laugh.
Sorry, I'm just a laugher.
I think he's just a cope laugher.
This one from
Maybe Brandon. That's true.
Brandon Hansen. Well, Lav, another one for you. It says, Lav, how many of the men that you have slept with would ask for your hand in marriage? Does your mother know that you have an OnlyFans? Does your father know?
I don't have an OnlyFans. My parents did know that I engaged in sex work. How many of those men? I've been engaged twice, and most of the men who I've been with have seen a future with me. So,
you got it. And Stuart Robinson says, Radical Coder, it must be. Is your last name Douglas? It must be because they keep saying RD. So
no, it's not.
Okay. Nonetheless, it's your new name. RD and Lav are against society norms. The union between a man and a woman is the most beautiful experience. Yeah, it's challenging, but when you see your own children produce their children, it all makes sense.
I'm going to say that when it comes to the union, the beautiful union between a man and a woman, that beautiful union probably isn't that beautiful for like gay men who weren't allowed to marry the people they loved, and now they get to have their beautiful union. And I think that's a better world. And I think it's shitty, and that you're like making the world a worse place when you advocate like against them having that right. So fuck you.
I think there's something really beautiful in femininity meeting masculinity. I would agree with that. Obviously, I am tradcon at heart, but I don't necessarily think that it needs to come from a biological man and a biological woman. I think that there is yin and yang in everyone, and I think that even gay couples can find yin and yang. So.
I don't understand
relativism.
I don't understand where this comes from.
Everyone's the same. It's all the same.
Where does this?
We're not talking about people in like leaning into their own unique strengths, like more individualism. We're not definitely hasn't been the whole fucking point.
I gotta ask this.
But you never proved how that was better. I gave you all these stats of horrible things that have happened from following your ideology, and you had nothing. You were just like,
you gave me stats and said feminism did this. You gave me a bunch of stats about bad things. You said feminism did this.
Yeah, and you didn't say, well, since feminism, here's all the great things I can point to. You had nothing. You're just like, we just like it better. Just on principle, we just like it. That's because I think it's the world that we want to live in. I think that there will be collateral for your position and our position, and I think that we are willing to take a little bit of collateral to have personal liberty. Well, next time you guys do a debate, you're supposed to make a case. You're supposed to make an argument. So try that next time.
Yeah, by the way, don't you want to see all kinds of personal liberties restricted?
No.
Like what?
You don't?
What do you mean?
Like OnlyFans? Wouldn't you want to see that restricted?
Yeah.
Really? So you do want to see some personal liberties restricted?
Probably some, sure.
Sure, yeah.
Sure, yeah. So the thing is
I don't think that people should be able to kill people and not go to jail. I think that within reason.
That was never our argument.
This is like a straw man.
What was the straw man? I asked you a direct question, and you gave me a direct answer for once.
Some things, like we shouldn't be able to like kill people for sure. But if you want
to have an OnlyFans.
I think that you should be able to have an OnlyFans, not if you're under 18, for example.
But would you like to see like government have policy or any type of local policy discouraging young women from getting an OnlyFans?
Not policy, no.
No. So how would
in
what way would you discourage it? Just
we should definitely make
a cultural conversation shift and informed consent.
Yeah.
A cultural conversation shift.
This one coming in from
consent-based utilitarian moral relativism.
Amen, Rachel. Love that.
It doesn't work. You have produced a hell world that now my kids have to grow up in.
I haven't produced anything. I'm a baby. I just started voting like 3 years ago. I haven't produced anything.
So where does
jumping to the next question? Jaretto, thank you very much. Says great show and said, I never hear men say that they want it all. Many women want to have it all. Is that possible? I think they mean children, family, and career.
Women's natural narcissism. I think it's a beautiful thing.
Did you say women's?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where's the tradcon part come in? Does it where you keep saying you're a tradcon at heart?
Well, here's different. I think that we have different. So I grew up Jewish, and I think that you guys are probably more. Yeah. So I believe in like a matriarchal. Yeah, I'm a cultural feminist. I think that women hold a lot of the cards.
That's not tradcon.
It's not. It is tradcon. It's just not
the
Christian
opposite of tradcon.
It's just not Christian tradcon.
That's the only type of tradcon. That's what traditional conservatism is.
Yeah. Well, also the thing with your mom.
What did you? I'm sorry. What do you think a traditional conservative is? It's God, country, borders, right?
Yeah, Israel. Family. Explain Israel.
Okay, so if you're going to be a tradcon in the United States, is this a Jewish nation?
It should. Well, a lot of people
should be.
Would argue it is.
You were about to say it should be.
No, I didn't. I said a lot of people would argue it is. Have you been on Cozy TV?
You were about to say it should be.
No, I don't think it should be. I'm culturally Jewish. I'm not religiously Jewish.
This one coming in from, appreciate it, Brandon Hansen says, if Lav couldn't make a lot of money by her looks, she wouldn't be doing manual labor jobs. She would just make less on OnlyFans or actually be married.
Well, I am getting married, so I don't know.
Maybe this is Beyonce too.
Wait. It sounds to me like her definition of tradcon is I don't want to work or do anything. I want to marry a guy who does everything for me and does all the hard things and lifts the heavy stuff. So I can just sit here and look cute. That's what it sounds like. I'm just saying
But that's certainly not what it is. I'm in school to be a doula right now. I really value femininity and motherhood. I really value that. I think
you're
that
in school to do what?
To be a doula.
What the fuck is that?
It's
Dave,
a midwife.
you know what that is? They deliver babies, but they also perform
You mean a
abortion.
midwife?
They don't perform. Doulas don't. They're not medical practitioners. They do not perform abortions.
Okay,
but you can have an abortion
I should
doula.
backtrack. Before the medicalization of abortion in the 50s, they were the ones who did all the abortions, which is why they were always witch hunted and stuff.
Sure.
I'm just gonna say, I think
I'm also very young, and the internet has raised me. So I think that I will change. I'm in the process of changing to a more mother. I wouldn't have a kid now. I'll start by saying that, obviously. But when I do have children, I will take motherhood extremely seriously.
Yeah, when you're in your early 30s and you're having a struggle with it because fertility drops like a rock. See, tradcons.
You don't have to worry about my fertility, Andrew.
Tradcons also get married young, generally. I'm just trying to figure out where the tradcon part ever comes.
I'm getting married right now, and I'm pretty young.
Well, I mean, you're not married, and you've had fiancés before, so I mean, this might just be fiancé number 2, number 3, number 4. You know what I mean?
Maybe 100.
Yeah.
Maybe. Perhaps that's true.
Good point, Andrew. Who knows?
Appreciate your question. Sunflower says, RC and Lav, how do you feel about the phrase bloom where you're planted? In particular, referring to women are planted biologically to be mothers. The path of least resistance for women to feel fulfilled is to be mothers.
I think that for the most part, that is true.
Wait, is that true? Someone's telling me, do you actually have a tattoo of the Baphomet on you?
Are you talking to Ryan?
No.
Yeah.
Lav.
This one coming in from Grace Thorpe says, Rachel, I agree with you, but don't think you'd make your point. But don't you think that you would make your point way better if you didn't shoot guns, write books, and weightlift? That's not exactly traditional motherhood. You do masculine things. You are a modern woman.
And we love you for it.
Well, I'm glad that Grace brought that up, even though she's permanently banned from the Crucible for the rest of time for stalking me like a psychopath on the internet. I talk about this often. I'm the least likely person to be advocating for traditional femininity in a lot of ways. However, the fact that I do
You're an outlier. It happens more than you think.
No, doing those things taught me a lot. I can shoot guns better than most women, but I can't shoot guns better than most men. I can lift more weight than most women, but I can't lift more weight than even probably Ryan can. I'm serious. There's biological differences.
I believe you.
And I want men to be running things and be in charge of things so that I can take care of the responsibilities I have at home.
So you can sit at home and look pretty, Rachel?
No, I work very hard. Having 5 children is very labor intensive. It's very difficult, and it's not something you can do with a career.
I think I think the hardest job and the coolest job is being a mom. So there's no laugh there.
Being a parent is probably one of the most rewarding positions.
I'm what we used to call a tomboy. Right now, we tell all the girls who grew up like me that they need to start taking hormones and growing beards, cut their tits off.
No, we don't.
I'm just
we kind of do.
I'm just a tomboy.
The fact that it's more available, it doesn't mean that we're telling all the women who are tomboys to do it.
Most tomboys grow up to be really great moms, right? And we live out in the country where sometimes I got to chop some wood and shoot some varmints and things like that. So nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with women being strong. It's just when they think that they need to usurp men and be in control and control freak everything that we have a problem.
But don't you think that women's natural highness and neuroticism would make women naturally control freaks?
They are controlling, but because they have natural
so their biological imperative is to control.
It's supposed to be
and our biological imperative is to oppress.
No, the women's biological imperative is supposed to be to raise children. We're supposed to control the children. It goes man, woman, children, right? We're not supposed to usurp the authority of the men, because when we do that, again, all hell breaks loose. Then,
okay, but how would you describe? So obviously, we already talked about IQ being, mostly in general, women having higher IQs. What would you say to the average woman who is going to date a man who is more dumb than her?
That's actually, it doesn't work like what you're saying. IQ is not an indicator of success in every area of life. So if you're
What's the biggest indicator of success? Isn't
only
it?
if
No.
you're talking about
even know that's actually
careerism, only if you're talking about certain things. So if you want to be a mom and have kids, you need a man to provide for you because you are going to have a baby stuck to your boob for 2 years. Okay.
Mhm.
You don't take it from someone who's done it. You don't want to try to be not sleeping all night, sleeping in hour or 2 hour increments, and then going to work all day and managing daycare and trying to
I
go to
agree.
parent-teacher conferences. That is bullshit. It's
Yeah, and the
horrible
more-
to do to women.
The
and
more
it's
that the man
terrible
can
to
contribute
kids.
to that, the better, right?
True.
No, the man needs to take care of the providing and protecting part so the woman can do the mothering and the homemaking part.
But why is it so hard to provide? Capitalism?
No,
problem?
because we doubled the workforce
More
in
of that
20
TradCon coming out.
years. We doubled the workforce from 1969 to 1989 by pushing all the women into it. That's why.
So
Exactly.
wait. So I
That
just
was
wanna
what
get
Lav was
this
arguing
straight.
stay
earlier,
home
yeah.
with their kids.
I gotta ask this. So TradCon to you, TradCon at heart, because it sounds to me, honestly, from what you have said, that you're a former OnlyFans working communist.
I'm not a communist.
Well, then what are you talking about? Capitalism being bad, socialist?
I
You
didn't
can't
say
talk
that.
about
I
the
didn't say
harms
that.
of capitalism. while
Yeah,
being a
I think that you
communist,
can.
like-
I think that I'm still like, capitalism is the best thing that we got, but there's still some criticism of it, right?
So now,
He
so,
improved. We can definitely do better.
so capitalism's not the
She
problem.
wants UBI.
I
Of
think
course.
that capitalism isn't
That's
the
not
problem, but
capitalism,
I
by the
think
way.
that there's some things with capitalism that are bad that we could probably remedy.
Which
This
things?
I do, just so we don't go off topic. This one coming in from High Flyer says there's very few real men these days. It's good to see Andrew smoking a real cigarette, Camel, without a filter.
Camel non-filters are good cigarettes, but you know the guys who smoke the Lucky Strikes with no filters got both of us beat.
And to answer your question,
I smoke Lucky Strikes without filters.
to answer your question from the last thing,
Am
I think one of the first steps is paid parental leave, like we were talking about earlier. That would be one way to improve capitalism.
Nobody wants to hear about your socialist garbage, but I will
Yeah,
tell you
paid parental
for a
leave.
fact,
Paid parental leave. You heard it here first, folks.
Smoking.
Is socialist garbage.
smoking is an aromatase inhibitor and actually increases testosterone. So
Holy shit, that's why I'm so alpha. That's why I'm more alpha than Andrew.
This one coming in from
why you're more
Brandon
alpha than
Hansen.
Ryan?
Brandon
Men are
Perhaps
definitely
that's
more
true.
likely to get lung cancer. That's for sure.
Brandon Hansen says, why is Lav allowed to lie about her arguments? She says anything against what Rachel and Andrew say. She has contradicted herself this whole time. I don't know. They don't say in particular what
He
you lied
has.
about.
Well, she literally has contradicted herself the entire debate. It's been
No, I
amusing.
haven't.
It's been
Multiple
amusing for me
things
to
can
watch.
be true at once.
In fact, I
Hold
even
on, just
asked
to be,
you.
all right. This is just. I'll give because we want to get through as many questions as we can. We're going to give Lav a chance to respond because it was for her. Otherwise, we're going to move to the next one. This
Well,
one from
yeah.
Tim Ziblick says, Lav, if your husband says he's going to do the breastfeeding, you should divorce him. This one from High Flyer says, there's quote, we got that one. That's about Andrew's choice of cigarettes. This one, Brandon Hansen says, traditional lifestyle, not cleaning, not cooking, not feeding the dog, considering adultery because the neighbor makes you feel sexy, having done OnlyFans in the past, making fun of your husband. You are a true role model, Lav.
Making fun of him. When did I do that?
I don't remember.
I think my fiance is the best man I've ever met in my fucking life, and he is traditionally masculine.
This one from Noah's Ark, Kansas.
What
says,
what a shock! What a shock!
I'm
so
not saying
shocked.
that that's not the normal. I'm not saying that's not the normal.
this one
It is
from
not-
I'm
it's
just
not what-
advocating for the outliers to exist, if that's what works.
Noah's Ark, Kansas says people, quote unquote, knowing nothing because they just started voting 3 years ago should not be able to vote. No honest stake in society. Oy vey.
First of all, it was 5 years ago. I was making myself sound a little younger. You need to start young. I'm going to be 22 for the next 5 years.
This one from Just
I
LOL
think
says,
more
yo,
people should be able to vote.
liberals, you need to hear this. They say freedom for freedom's sake leads to a degenerate society. Freedom is supposed to be used as a means to an end. Use it in responsible ways to perpetuate stable families and a good community.
I'm not sure that I agree with that perception of freedom, but yeah, maybe that's another conversation. I don't know. I have to think about that.
Brandon Hansen says, the more I argued with them, the better I came to know their dialectic. First, they counted on the stupidity of their adversary, and then there was no other way out. They themselves simply played stupid.
I don't think you're that stupid, Andrew.
Good. Nick, this one coming in from, do you appreciate your question? Truvi says, question for the soy side. Right equals might equals nation/society. Ask Afghanistan about toxic masculinity and feminism.
And there's a lot of toxic masculinity in those environments as well, and it's not good. And the oppression of women there is also like really bad and worse, in fact, because they like lean into it worse.
I wouldn't even call it toxic masculinity. I think it's just toxicity. I think that I don't think that masculinity is inherently toxic. Well, I don't think that's what toxic masculinity means, but I think that's what a lot of people think it means. And I think there's like people on Andrew's side like often try to frame it that way, and I think it's a tragedy, and it's because they want to reject acknowledging those toxic traits.
Well, I think what you suffer from is a toxic lack of masculinity.
Maybe so.
So I think it works in the reverse order. Actually, I don't think it works in the one way. I think it works the other direction. The lack of masculinity creates guys like you, Ryan.
Based more me.
This one from Grace Thorpe, your buddy Rachel, says, I love Lav. A nice woman who wears pretty makeup and lets Andrew talk, unlike Rachel.
Oh, God.
Oh, no.
I love misogyny in the comments.
How will I ever recover?
This one from Giretto says, Lav is 5 years away from needing a whole new personality. She is pretty, but none of this will be aging well. The knee tattoos... Book it, modern day debate. I don't know what we'd
this
be
is
booking.
pen.
You got it.
Tattoo.
This one from Joshua Manella says, can you describe how paid parental leave is socialist? Rachel, can you define socialism?
That's a good question.
I can define socialism, but I would rather die than have another conversation about socialism. It's completely uninteresting to me. I'm a woman. I don't want to talk about economics.
Wholly based. That is literally true.
Juicy. This one from Jack Robert, appreciate it, says, Lav, why do women go for the bad boy or masculine men over weak or shy or soft or puny men as partners?
I don't think that that's true.
Except in your case?
My what do you mean? My man is extremely masculine.
That's the whole point. He's asking, why do women go for those guys?
I don't think that they do. I think those guys are
just
are
you
now...
though.
No, I don't. My fiance is traditionally masculine.
Yeah, but wasn't the question, why do women go for the masculine men?
Yeah,
why
saying,
don't they?
No.
They're saying like, why do women go for the like strong men over the weak, shy men?
I don't know.
I mean,
you don't know?
I think that. Well, I think oftentimes women go for men who they feel like honored by. I don't think it has to do with like, I've never looked at him. Maybe I have looked at a man carry something heavy and felt a tickle, but I don't know. Maybe it's evolutionary. Who's to say? You want to be taken care of. You want the best chance for your offspring.
You don't know why women would be attracted towards men who acted like men. Really? This is a complex question for you.
No. I masculinity is attractive. Like being strong is attractive. That aesthetic is attractive. But also, if a man cannot be empathetic to me or kind to me or collaborative, then I'm not attracted to him. And I don't think a lot of women are.
Juicy. Whoa, last one. Brandon Hansen, thanks for your question, says Lav is a shapeshifter, just like her fellow cohorts. She takes the position that allows for her to take the win.